Welcome to episode 100 of Fulfilled. I am your host, Camille. Thank you for tuning into such a special episode today. This might sound cheesy. It truly feels like just yesterday that I was so excited and proud of myself for reaching episode 20. There is this statistic that Chris Williamson shares, one of my favorite podcasters, if you've never heard of him, that 99% of podcasts don't make it past episode 20. And so that's why for me, 20 was such a big milestone because I'm like, wow, if I can make it past 20, I can do anything. And now all of a sudden, it's episode 100. And that statistic is always one that's kept me motivated and kept me going because it's a reminder of how far I've come, how much I've really stuck to something, not only started something, but stuck to it. Because later in the episode, one of the lessons that I'm going to share is starting something and sticking to something can be incredibly difficult. So today we're celebrating 100. So naturally, in honor of episode 100, I found it very fitting to share all of the biggest and hardest lessons that I've learned in creating 100 podcast episodes. Because safe to say, this journey has not been an easy one, but quite honestly, I feel like I've never grown more throughout this experience. This past year and a half, I guess, of doing the podcast has been the most transformative ones of my life. And so today I want to share some of the biggest insights and lessons and breakthroughs that I've had going through this experience to inspire you on whatever journey that you're on. Before we dive in, if you're listening to this, and if you're not already, take a minute to press follow or subscribe wherever you are listening. This will give you access to episodes every single week when they come out, plus means so much to me. I promise you won't regret it. All right, episode 100, here we go. Here are the biggest and hardest lessons that I have learned this past year of creating 100 podcast episodes. First one, if you're called to do something, that is for a reason. When I first decided to do the podcast, it was because I had this kind of inner voice come up. I had this feeling that I couldn't shake, that it was time to start the podcast. Like, this is what I need to do. And I kept trying to push it down, right? I'm like, it's not the right time. It's supposed to come later when it makes most sense. And I really couldn't. And it was bringing about this feeling of anxiety because I wasn't acting on that voice and it kind of kept coming up. It's like one of those that you can't shake, it's like that gut feeling that just won't go away or keeps resurfacing. And so I couldn't stop thinking about it. I shared this in previous episodes, but I sent one of my best friends, Emma, a voice memo saying all right, I'm officially going to start the podcast. It's happening. And since I acted on it, just took one step at a time towards actually creating the podcast, right? So figured out what to call it, figured out how to even create cover art on Canva, all the tiny steps. That anxiety started to go away because I was acting on that voice. That voice was there for a reason. And I know that to be true, especially now because I'm still doing it. And I think about that week and that moment all the time because in that moment, I knew this voice is here for a reason and I know that I meant to act on it. So if you have that voice, if you have this nudge that keeps coming up that you're experiencing, one that you can't shake, one that's causing you a bit of anxiety, this is your sign to act on it. That voice is there for a reason. What is it that it's nudging you to take step towards or maybe take steps away from? It is calling to you for a reason. That voice is there to guide you. It is not to just be anxiety in your life as an inconvenience. It is there to guide you. Okay, next important lesson that I've learned through this journey. I've already hinted to this a little bit at the beginning, but it's not just about starting something. It's also about sticking to something. And both are equally as hard, but in different ways. Let me explain. The fear of starting something is one thing, right? You're taking steps towards something you really want to do, or you're taking a risk. You're putting yourself out there. You're being vulnerable. That initial step can be extremely difficult and often the hardest one. Going for something that you really want just feels really real. And I think what makes it so hard too is if we fail at it, it will really hurt us because we want it so badly. Or, oh my gosh, if we fail at that thing we really want, what does that mean about who we are? I feel like I'm going to fail myself. Or what if I get rejected from people I love? There's all these things that come up when we want to make a change or take a risk or start something. So that can be extremely hard. But once you take that first step, you start to gain that momentum. And so pushing through that initial fear can be so beneficial and important in taking steps towards your goals and your dreams. And I felt this so strongly when I started the podcast, putting myself out there, being vulnerable, talking about these real, authentic things that I wanted to share felt terrifying because the truth is I didn't reveal this side of myself to the people in my life really before this process at all. And so it felt like a really scary step and risk. And that fear took a lot to work through in the beginning. But then sticking to something, staying consistent throughout this whole process presented an entirely new set of challenges, right? It took showing up when I didn't feel like it, being my biggest supporter when no one else cared, being consistent no matter what, putting in the work in evenings and weekends on top of my 9-to-5 full-time job, working through limiting beliefs when they would come up, working through that self-doubt, wondering if I was on the right path. All of these things were constant battles every single day of sticking to something hard, sticking to something in the long term. So yes, starting something is very difficult, but sticking to something is equally as difficult. But both are so important and crucial in whatever it is that you're working towards. Because the reality is being consistent on any journey is extremely difficult. There's going to be days when you feel super motivated and excited and you're like, oh my gosh, I feel so aligned. I feel so in flow. This is what I'm meant to do. And then there's going to be days when you're like, this is the absolute last thing that I feel like doing right now. But, and this is something I'm going to circle back to in my last lesson, so this is just a preview, showing up despite these challenges, despite these fears, is why I'm here in episode 100. It's why I've grown the most I've ever grown in this last year. Continuing to show up anyways is the best thing I could have done for myself and for this podcast. So yes, starting it was huge and extremely difficult, but sticking to it was also a huge factor. So this kind of leads me to my next point, that third big lesson that I want to share with you. The true key to confidence is taking aligned action. And I feel like I've really proven this to myself in this last year and a half, like I've shared, because every single time I showed up and did the thing, leaned into that fear that I was scared of, maybe had a guest on that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so intimidated by them. They're so cool, blah, 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 or recorded when I didn't feel like it, or put myself out there on social media despite any judgment or rejection that I was receiving. I built self-trust and confidence in myself. Every single time I took the step closer to my dream, closer to making this podcast what I want it to be, I felt so much more confident in myself, in my abilities, in who I am, and how I show up. It's always through taking action that I boost that confidence in myself. Not from overthinking, which is what I used to do. The old version of me would overthink and ruminate and try to create the perfect circumstance in my mind before actually taking this step. And it didn't make me feel confident. It made me feel really insecure, actually, because the more I would overthink, the more I would just question and start to doubt myself and kind of talk myself out of even taking action. But through taking action, I've found that I've learned the most along the way, and also just prove to myself every single step I take and every single time I show up and do the actual thing that I can, that I'm capable. I prove to myself that I am worthy of this, that I can do this, and that I'm on the right path. And so taking that aligned action towards your goals, towards your vision, towards your dreams is how to build confidence in yourself. Okay, next thing I want to share. You can't force people to support you. So in the beginning of the podcast, I was texting episodes to friends. I was reaching out to friends saying like, hey, like throw me some love on social media, feeling really insecure and vulnerable, having like literally 0 listeners and 0 followers, right? Like gotta start somewhere. And so I was like, of course, like my friends will support it. Like throw me a bone. And of course some did, right? Like some listened and some engaged on social media, but like a lot also didn't. And just prefacing, this isn't like a dig at anyone or me trying to say anything negative about anyone, but it kind of like shook me and it felt kind of shitty and it confused me. And I was like, wait, what? I'm literally asking for their support. Like, again, being vulnerable and like sending these cringy texts being like, hey, like listen to this episode and blah, blah, blah. And when they still wouldn't, I was like, why? Like, what's going on here? And I realized 2 things. The first being, the truth is everyone's way more focused on their own lives and has their own shit going on. Like not everyone cares or has the capacity to really even like support you, right? But B, the truth is not everyone's gonna genuinely have your best interest. Not everyone in your life genuinely wants you to succeed or genuinely will be comfortable and supportive of you putting yourself out there and taking a risk in a new way. It's just true. That's just how it goes. And I've heard this too from a ton of other entrepreneurs and podcasters that I've either had on the podcast or I listened to their podcast. It's just the case on any journey, on any growth journey, on any pursuit. There's going to be people who don't support you genuinely. And so I learned pretty quickly that it's best for me to not force people in my life to support me, but that the genuine ones will. I do have such genuine family and friends in my life who have been super supportive, who listen, who engage and express to me how proud they are and things like that. And then there's been plenty of people who just really don't support it. And I've learned to accept that. And I've also learned it's not about me, that people will always project things. And what I've learned to be really effective is to protect what is really important to me and what I'm passionate about in this pursuit by not sharing it with just anyone in my life. Being a bit particular about who I ask for support from, about who I share all the details of my goals with. Because if it's your thing that you're passionate about, that you're doing, it's your life. Not every single person needs to be a part of it, especially if they're going to project maybe some negative energy or ingenuineness onto it. Not everyone will genuinely support you, and that's okay. And I remind myself too, the people I'm creating this for, it wasn't just my friends. It wasn't my existing social circle. No, the people that genuinely will resonate with Fulfilled, with the content that I felt called to share, they will find it. I don't have to force it onto people in my life. And so I've learned to protect that energy and to not force support from people, and to accept that the genuine support that I get from the people that I love, that will always have my back, that is enough, and I can let the rest go. And this leads me to a follow-up point that I just want to touch on. You can't force people to change or grow. They have to seek it out on their own. So this is similar to what I just shared, but essentially, I felt like when I was also asking friends to listen to the episodes, I wasn't considering like, maybe they're not into growth and self-improvement. Maybe they don't want to talk about these deeper things. Maybe they don't like to get all introspective and question the deeper meaning of life and find their true purpose. Like, maybe that's actually not their vibe. Maybe that's really not their calling or their interest. And I selfishly wasn't even considering that. I'm like, every single person needs this message. Every single person needs this lesson. But again, the people that you are creating for, the people that you are doing it for, they will find you. They will be drawn to it. You don't have to force that growth and that change onto them. And actually, a coworker of mine shared this with me once because we become friends, and I shared an episode with her, and I asked her once, I'm like, I feel like you haven't really listened or something like that. And she goes, yeah, to be honest, I'm not really ready to grow. Like, I'm really not ready to lean into that. And I'm like super aware of that. Like, I'm not ready to take that step. And immediately I was like, wow, thank you for sharing that and being super honest, because it immediately allowed myself to stop taking it so personally that she hadn't listened to an episode. And it was a humbling awakening to realize like, there are so many people who aren't there yet, or who don't need that message yet. But the people who do need that message will find it. And so it's another reason I've stopped forcing support or change or growth onto people, because you don't have to force what's genuine and what's aligned in your life. So if you're feeling that lack of support or excitement from people about your pursuit, just know that it's not about you. And there will be people in your life who will genuinely support you. Okay, next thing I've learned from this journey, the importance of listening to your body and rest, especially for long-term goals. So I'm not going to lie, I've shared this in other episodes as well, but I definitely was approaching burnout like this past winter. I was still balancing this on top of my full-time job and really just working hard every single minute of the evenings and weekends and just like really grinding. I was hustling. And when you feel burnout, you essentially feel like you lose your spark, you lose that motivation. And I was just kind of like down and tired and sad a lot of the time. And the reason I was working so hard is I wasn't feeling super excited and fulfilled by a lot of other aspects of my life. So I was like, I'm going to just double down on the podcast because that is the one like thing that I really do love right now. And I don't regret putting all that work in. I do genuinely think if you are super ambitious and have these goals, it's important to work hard. It's important to take evenings and weekends and do something on the side when you start. But what I wasn't doing was allowing myself that rest and that fun and those breaks that I really needed. I was pushing myself too hard. And so I've learned the genuine importance of rest and of fun, and how important it is to incorporate enjoyment and rest in your long-term goal, in that long-term pursuit. Because the reality is you're not going to make it to that end goal if you don't lean into these things, because that burnout is going to stop you too early on. Or the other reality is that journey is going to feel horrible and exhausting because you're just going to be exhausted and pushing yourself and hustling the entire time. But what I've found is when I've incorporated rest and enjoyment, it's made it a lot more fun. And by slowing down at times and practicing that slow down and rest, I actually feel a lot more intentional. I feel like a better version of myself. And I actually enjoy the process more. And I've realized, wow, that hour of rest or those few hours of going out and being social and doing something fun is actually going to prove to be far more beneficial in the long run than continuing to keep my head down for an hour when I know that's not what I need in that moment. And so this key lesson is that rest and enjoyment are key ingredients for any long-term pursuit or any long-term success, or really just to feel fulfilled in life. Like, we need balance. Okay, next lesson. You will lose friends, and that's okay, because the truth is you're going to make so many more throughout your journey. So I think there's two things going on here when you kind of evolve out of friendships. At least this is what I've personally felt in this journey. So the first being, as I said before, I've grown more this past year and a half than I ever have through this pursuit, through continuing to show up in this process, through putting myself out there. I have grown more than I've ever have. And you might hear people say, like, if you want really fast growth, like, start a business. And a podcast, I guess, is like similar to a business. But yeah, I felt that. I get it, because you have to keep showing up and you prove to yourself that you can be consistent, and you just learn and grow so much along the way. And so naturally, with this growth, my relationships have changed and evolved as I have. And that's a natural part of life. If you're growing, there's two things that would happen. The relationships in your life grow and evolve with you, but more often than not, they're on a different timeline and path, and you might grow apart, and that is okay. It's just a part of it. So if you're on this pursuit or journey where you feel like you're growing a lot and you're losing friends, one thing that I was doing in the beginning was taking it really personally, but now I just have such clarity. Like, it's a normal part of the journey. It's a normal part of life. But then the second thing that I think is going on here, by putting myself out there in this very authentic and vulnerable way, and again, in a very different way than I was showing up in my relationships beforehand, it's not going to be everyone's thing. It's not going to really jive with everyone. It's going to make some people uncomfortable. And to be honest, certain close friends in my life have really projected that onto me by kind of rejecting me, cutting me off, and like really all of a sudden just like dropping out of my life. And yes, it was hurtful, but I have such clarity that it's just a part of it, and that we weren't meant to be long-term. Because if I'm showing up authentically and putting myself out there in a vulnerable way, and friends are falling off for it, then I know that those aren't the genuine friends that are going to be in alignment with who I really am long-term. And the truth is, I want to surround myself with people who are going to have my best interest and show me that genuine support without me feeling like I have to be a certain way. And so not only do I see losing friends as just being a part of it, but honestly, something I'm grateful for, because as I said, it just creates space for more aligned relationships in your life and for genuine friendships that I truly now feel so grateful for. Okay, the next one is the power of having a network and connecting with people. This is such a big one, and one that I've been so grateful for throughout this journey, because quite honestly, if I didn't have this network that I've developed, I don't think I would be where I am today recording episode 100. I definitely wouldn't know nearly as much as I know today, and I wouldn't feel as supported and nearly as confident as I do. And this journey has gifted me with so many incredible people, whether it be guests I've had on the podcast or people on social media. I've learned the power of just reaching out to people, to learn from them, to have them on, to just put myself out there and be like, hey, let's connect. And more often than not, people are really willing to. People are open to. Yes, there's going to be people who don't reply, but I've learned the power of just putting yourself out there and asking, and just being so open to connect with anyone and everyone, not necessarily like needing or wanting something from it, but just being excited and open to learning what they have to share or learning about their story. It's helped me grow and evolve in so many ways. And all of a sudden, I now feel like I have this amazing growing network to turn to for advice or to support me in a genuine way. And it's just been a really beautiful part of the process, and very different from the networking that I was doing in business previously, right? Like, I was going to these boring network events and just like so unstimulated and unexcited about the things I was learning. But that's probably because I actually hated what I was doing in business. So developing a genuine network and reaching out to people to connect and learn from them, extremely powerful in whatever you're doing, because you shouldn't have to do it alone. And if you want to be successful, you shouldn't do it alone. You should learn from the people who've carved the path ahead of you. Okay, next one. I touched on this a little briefly earlier, but it's just so true and always hits home for me. People are always more focused on themselves. Like, they're genuinely probably not even paying attention to you. And this is the spotlight effect, right? It's the idea that we have in our heads that we tell ourselves that we think everyone is so focused on us. Everyone's talking about us. Everyone's staring at us. Everyone's judging us, blah, blah, blah. They're not. They're focused on themselves. And so if that's a fear that's holding you back, if that's something that's preventing you from moving forward, taking that risk, putting yourself out there, from being yourself, just know they're paying way less attention to you than you think they are. And the reason I've learned this so much on this journey is because, again, in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, everyone's laughing at me. Everyone's judging me. Everyone's like pointing their finger and blah, blah, blah. But they're not. Everyone has their own stuff going on. And it's been really comforting for me because I'm like, oh, I can actually show up authentically and put myself out there because they're not paying as much attention. So it's helped just like subside that fear of judgment and rejection a little bit because they have their own lives and their own insecurities, to be honest, to focus on. But this is also something that I'm always working on because I think we all have that fear come up of rejection and of fear of judgment. Next one, you are the only one that can bring your dreams to reality. I'm going to keep this one short but sweet. There is no one coming to save you. There is no one coming to bring that dream into a reality for you. You have to take the first step and then the next step and then the next step. So again, going back all the way to point one, if you feel called to something, you are the only one who can take that step. You are the only one who can actually start to take action towards it. You are the only one who can change your life. And it's easy to want to wait for that perfect circumstance, right? It's easy to want to blame your circumstance and say, oh, I can't because XYZ, or wait for a certain person to show up to do it for you or anything. All that's doing is keeping you stuck where you are. No matter your circumstance, no matter what victim mindset you find yourself trapped in, you're the only one that can change it. You're the only one that can take that step. So hopefully that inspires someone listening. And final point, one that I really wanted to end on because, again, I genuinely wouldn't be here recording episode 100 if I didn't learn this lesson early on. The power of doing it even when you don't feel like it. Oh my gosh, I can't tell you the amount of times that I have felt exhausted, have not felt like recording, have battled insecurities and self-doubt and almost given up at times, for sure. Again, when I was feeling burnout, I was like, why am I doing this kind of? And I know in a previous point that I made that rest and slowing down and enjoyment is important. And I stand by that. It is. But so is this. So is showing up and doing something even when you don't feel like it. Because guess what? Even if you don't feel like it in this moment, when you actually start to get in the flow, even 5 minutes in, you're going to start to feel like it. It's like, think of how many times you don't feel like going to the gym and you show up and you start working out and then you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I came. This is fun. This is going to make me feel so good for the rest of the day. It's the same with anything. Even if you don't feel like it right now, you know your future self is going to be grateful you did. So you do it anyways because you think of that bigger why, like, why am I really doing this? Why is this important to me? Oh yeah, I'm going to continue to take this step even if I don't feel like it right now because I am building that self-trust in myself. And every single time I showed up, even after I didn't feel like it, I felt so proud. I felt so much more accomplished. And I was proving to myself again that I can show up and do it even when I don't feel like it. And also, like I just said, every single time that I did start, I got in the mood. I started to feel like it. And when I would finish, whether it be recording, whether it be posting on social media, whatever, all the stuff that goes into this, I always felt more energized because I proved something to myself, because I did it anyways. And that's been a really important key in showing up and staying consistent throughout all of this. And it always results in feeling high energy and really proud and just doing right by my future self. So these are the biggest and hardest lessons that I've learned from recording 100 podcast episodes. If you like today's episode, leave a rating or review. All of this would really mean the world and help so much in my efforts. And I'll see you all for episode 101 of Fulfilled.